All right, guys. If I get a thumbs up from Cindy and Greg, we will go ahead and get rolling. I see one and two. Perfect. Um, Fantastic. If I am a little distracted, it's because I'm letting folks in from the waiting room. So I will do my best to both introduce our speakers and allow folks to join. So I am Marcus Jewett with the Excel Center National Office, and it is my privilege to introduce Greg Wertenberger and Cindy Varner from Goodwill Industries of Arkansas for their session titled Owning It, Engaging Teams in the Process of Innovation and Improvement. And so I know it's going to make them cringe, but I'm going to go ahead and read their bios so that you know a little bit more about our friends. I get the privilege of working with them quite regularly. So I wanted to share who they are and what their roles look like at their Goodwill, and they will take it from there. So Greg Wertenberger joined the Excel Center team as the director of Little Rock, Arkansas campus in January of 2020. So welcome to the family and to your first conference, Greg. After 19 years of working in education and nonprofit settings as an educator, professional development provider, program director, and curriculum specialist, Greg is passionate about helping others realize an enlarged vision of who they can be through innovative approaches to teaching and learning. And Cindy Varner, who is also presenting today, is currently serves as the Vice President of Workforce Development for Goodwill Industries of Arkansas. She provides executive oversight of all education and workforce development programs administered by Goodwill statewide. In addition to leading the Excel Center, Cindy oversees the Academy at Goodwill, a state licensed trade school, 25 career centers, disability program services, mission services, and reentry employment programs. Prior to assuming her leadership role at Goodwill in early 2017, Cindy served as the State Director of Arkansas for 19 years, administering more than 25 federally funded employment and training programs and providing strategic direction for the state's workforce development system. Cindy is a certified global career development facilitator instructor and a certified career services provider. Prior to assuming her leadership role at Goodwill in early 2017, Cindy served, that's a duplicate. So that is not as long. That is a copy and paste error on my end. So Cindy, you don't have to cringe anymore.
Thank you.
I will turn the show over to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcus. And I do have to say, when we were asked if we had any requests about our introductions, I told Katie, I said, please just tell Marcus his job is to make us sound smart when we get started. So I will say, I think you did all right. So that now we have to see if we can live up to that great introduction. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I just want to say welcome to all of you to the Excel National Conference and to this session. As Marcus said, I am about 6 months into my tenure with the Excel Center, and I am so excited to be attending my first Excel Center National Conference. I would have really wished to get to meet more of you face to face and have some more extended opportunities for some collaboration and discussion. And so as we get launched into our session today, we will give you some of those opportunities. We know our time is really tight, but there is going to be a follow-up form that we're going to invite you to sign up if you choose to, and to share your contact information, email address, phone number, whatever way you best connect afterwards, because we would like you to have the opportunity to have some of those extended conversations even after our short time here this morning. So because we are on the clock, we're going to go ahead and dive right in. And I would just want to start off by saying, when I looked at the list of sessions that we had to choose from this morning, number one, I'm really excited that we were one of the first ones out the gate, because most of you are probably still fresh and interested in learning and attentive. At least I know I am in the morning. As the day gets longer, at about 3 o'clock this afternoon, that might be a little bit more challenging. So I'm really excited that we get to kind of start off the day with you. But just from the title of our presentation around engaging teams in the processes of innovation and improvement, I have to make an assumption here this morning. And one of my assumptions is that one of the reasons you chose out of all of the great offerings that you had to choose from this morning was that there's something in your mind that you want to see some improvement or some innovation around in your particular setting. So we've got our image here in this kind of question to get us thinking. What challenges or opportunities are on your horizon? What is that kind of mountain that's out there in the foggy distance for you right now as you are looking? I know we are staring down the barrel of the gun right now with starting classes next Monday. We're doing that all online again. While that's not brand new territory for us here in Little Rock, we just finished a complete term back in mid-June with making that shift to all online instruction during the current crisis that we're dealing with public health. But so we certainly have plenty of opportunities and challenges related to that, as I'm sure many of you do. But what I want to invite you to do is, if you don't already have that that challenge or that mountain kind of in your mind right now, go ahead and take a minute and just write that down for yourself. I hope you have a notepad or something there with you where you're jotting down some notes and some thoughts. And I will say we have scheduled some of our limited time today to take a couple of minute pause. Actually, there are 3 spaces in our presentation today where we're going to invite you to write down some of your thoughts. I mentioned our follow-up collaboration form that we will be sharing with you. So if you are writing down the URL address, you can do that. There's also a QR code there available for you if you want to use that on your phone or other device. I know a lot of people may or may not have multiple screens, so it could be really difficult to try to multitask. So what I want to advise you to do is just maybe jot down some notes that you would go back later and fill out our follow-up collaboration form. So don't panic. I'll put this slide up again at the end of the presentation. And this entire slide deck has also been uploaded into the conference app. So you have multiple ways that you could come back and revisit any of the slides in this presentation. And we will we'll share those responses out with everyone. I do want to make sure I mention that your responses that you share on this Google form are going to be visible to everyone that completes the form. All right. So whatever you share out there, your phone number, your email address, those thoughts that are kind of rolling around in your mind, that is going to be public. It is going to be visible to everyone who completes the form. So just know that going into it, what you share out there is going to be visible to everyone. But here, there are pretty much 3 main areas that we're going to be inviting you to kind of reflect on and then collaborate around following the session. What are some of those areas of interest or challenge that are facing you? Where are you wanting to see some innovation or improvement in your particular setting? That way, if you share that information, hopefully some of the other folks in our session today may also be dealing with some of the same challenges. In fact, I would put money on it. So they would maybe have a more targeted opportunity to reach out to you and invite that follow-up collaboration. My hope is that something that you will hear or reflect on today may give you a half-baked idea that you just might try coming out of here. It doesn't have to be a fully formed, beautiful idea, but something that you think you might want to attempt. What is that? What is something that you may try to take out of here and do going forward to do differently? And then any of your reflections or notes that you might like to share, you'll have opportunities to do that on the Google form as well. We also have our chat feature. Since we have Cindy and I both here kind of tag teaming this presentation, we will be working to monitor the chat as we go. So if you do have a thought or a question or a comment, I realize with the number of people that we have in the short amount of time, it's difficult to have those popping up all the time verbally with your mic, but go ahead and feel free to blow that chat up. Share those reflections with one another when we do our reflection pieces. If there is a comment or reflection that you would like to share with the group, please don't hesitate to go ahead and put that in the chat box now during the session. You don't have to wait to put that in our follow-up collaboration document. So does that make sense? Are we good with moving forward? And you have multiple ways there to write down some of your notes and collect those thoughts to then share with the group and collaborate as we go forward. So as I mentioned coming in, I assume that if you came to this session today, there is some kind of challenge or area of opportunity that you're experiencing in your setting where you feel like it would be valuable to gain some insight or some perspective from some of your stakeholders, from either students that you serve, from your staff, from your community partners, and you're interested in trying to figure out how can we more effectively engage those folks to really truly innovate some of our practices, some of our approaches, some of the tools that we use to navigate the challenges that we're facing right now in teaching in our settings. So one of the first kind of approaches that we want to focus on today in our session are some practical approaches that we can use to build a community and a culture of trust where people feel valued and they feel supported and they feel empowered. Because if some of our goals that we are trying to meet right now are truly those goals that are going to require us to do something different, to do something new, or to make a change, to make some improvement to some of the things that we're doing now, we need the people who are involved to know that they are in a place where they can take some risk. They can do something differently. Their ideas matter. And that even if our initial attempts may not go exactly like we want them to go, they're in a place where they are supported and they will be encouraged as we navigate our way through some of those challenges. You may have heard the famous quote with Steve Jobs, who said, "It doesn't make any sense to hire smart people and then tell them what to do. We need to hire smart people so they can tell us what to do." So we have in all of our settings, we have great people that we work with, I'm sure. The more voices that we can get to the table, again, from our students to our stakeholders, then the more opportunity that we're going to have to truly find and discover what some of those innovative approaches are going to be. But that only comes out of a place where people know that, that their voice is valued and that they're going to be supported as they bring forth those ideas to the table. So one of the, as I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty new in my experience here at the Excel Center, and fortunately for me, one of the first experiences I got to have in my directorship here at the Excel Center was to attend a Goodwill leadership retreat with our executive leadership. And so I'm going to kind of turn it over here to Cindy to talk to us a little bit about what that executive leadership retreat was like, what the goals of that retreat were about, and then I'll come back in and tell you a little bit how we carried that on and scaled that to the rest of our staff.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here with everybody. As you can see, I want to kind of play off the quote that you can see on your screen. So we rarely create something different until we experience something different. And so that really sums up the direction that we're going in Arkansas. Our intent this morning is to share with all of you some of the activities, planning, events that we've had to include staff from across all levels of the company. And when I say the company, we loop, we don't think of the Excel Center as being separate. We think of it as being part of our overall company, even though it is a separate entity. And so just want to share with you some of our strategies that we've taken. And hopefully some of those will work for you. So as Greg mentioned, the leadership retreat, and our intent behind that is to remove silos. So we have directors from throughout the company that we consider our leadership team. We meet on a monthly basis, and that's folks everywhere from the Excel Center to our HR department, to our facilities department, to our executive team. It includes our marketing individuals. So it includes a representation from throughout the company, includes our donated goods and retail operation, where we meet and come together and try and remove the silos and just focus on solving challenges that we have within the company and having all of those minds at the table to help solve those. And so, as Greg said, we had our leadership retreat, and the focus of that not only was removing the silos, but everyone understanding across the company what our individual roles are, what role we play in advancing the culture of our organization. So we focused a lot on company-wide culture and our values. I have worked for organizations in the past where we had on paper, we had company values, we had company culture. But if you stop someone in the elevator and ask them, you know, what's the company culture? What's the company values? One, they're probably not going to know what you're talking about. But two, they certainly aren't going to be able to tell you what that is. And I will say one of the things that we do an exceptional job of here is making sure that individuals throughout the company understand what our culture is, what our values are. We live by an ACE culture, amazing customer experience. We live by our I-CARE values, integrity, collaboration, attitude, respect, and exploration. So making sure that you really are ingraining that in every area of your organization, and not just including your staff, but we've also begun including that with our students. And so we began having community meetings where we would have the teachers and the life coaches identify students who are demonstrating each of those characteristics and recognizing them for their contributions. We also, since Greg has been here, we've opened that up to our students to nominate other students. So the students can identify in their peers that they are exhibiting the culture and values that we want to demonstrate, and having them nominate those individuals that they see demonstrating it. We also, in our leadership development, have looked at team building, making sure that we feel comfortable reaching across party lines, if you would say, regardless of our role, to make sure that we feel comfortable in seeking support and assistance. We've also spent a great deal of time identifying each of our individual whys. So I don't know if y'all have done that, but just having each individual sit and describe and identify a why statement. Why are we here? Why are we at Goodwill? Why are we at the Excel Center? And how did those play in together to support one another? Greg mentioned very briefly the half-baked ideas. I'm going to give credit to Everett Shoup at Goodwill International, for those of you who know Everett. Everett posted a video, very short video, on his LinkedIn page, and I happened to see it one day and shared it with my team just as a, hey, this is kind of interesting. And it really blew up. So if you're on LinkedIn, go find Everett and watch the video. But he talks about half-baked ideas and how we spend a great deal of time thinking of an idea, wanting to share it. We spend a great deal of time in a silo, all in a vacuum by ourselves, researching it, coming up with a solution, and then bringing it as a full-fledged plan to the team. But what you fail to do when you do that is you don't include anyone else's input and you don't include anyone else's ideas. And so what Everett's suggestion is bring it as a half-baked idea. Hey, this is a half-baked idea I have. I think we should try this, or this is something we should do. And then letting the team have input on that. I didn't realize when I sent that out that it was going to take such traction. And so we actually are using that concept now within my own leadership team. So that includes all of our career services, our disability services, our reentry teams. They're interacting with Excel staff to give their input on our half-baked ideas. So just some ideas to try and integrate all of the teams across programs, across delivery of service. So Greg, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Cindy. So, you know, and I appreciate the description of the goals of our leadership all the way up to executive level leadership in our company. So even bigger than just the Excel Center, the school, our programs here, coming into this culture as a new staff person. Of course, I recognized that immediately, and I valued so much early in my experience here to have the opportunity to go hear our leadership share some of their personal whys. Of course, I learned about the I Care values in our corporation. I had read and researched about that as I was preparing for my interview, in fact. But it's one thing to read those mission statements and to see those I Care values listed as bullet points in your employee handbook. It's another thing entirely to get to hear your leaders talk about the impact that they have seen through their own lives, but then also the stories, the powerful stories of people, of individuals who have been impacted and transformed because of the demonstration of those values and that culture. So one of the things that I really enjoy seeing when I walk through the halls of our building, not just here in the Excel Center, but in Goodwill as a whole, we have these large vinyl prints of people who have been impacted. They're not just generic stock photos. They are the people that we serve, the lives that have been transformed through education, training, and employment. And so being immersed in that culture, being surrounded by stories of people who, through effort and through persistence, and through quite a bit of failure and getting back up again, have really seen dramatic change in their lives. And so when we're surrounded by those messages, that really becomes part of our culture. It isn't, the words jump off of the page or off of the pictures on the wall, because it really is something that we personally connect to on a regular basis. So, our goal out of the leadership retreat and out of, really constantly communicating our values and the kind of culture that we want to have, in addition to building trust, we're wanting to see that scale from our executive leadership through our school staff, and then even into our classrooms and our community. So our students are experiencing that same level of trust in a classroom situation, but then our partners in the community outside of our school who don't get maybe the benefit of seeing and hearing those powerful stories every day, that they get the message of what we are about and the kind of culture that we want to have here in our school. So I will say that was a very powerful experience for me at our leadership retreat, getting to hear leaders like Cindy and our CEO, Brian Marsh, tell their personal why, about why this company and why this school means so much to them. And that really helped me reflect as an individual about where I fit into this culture. And it makes, and when I can clearly communicate that, it makes me willing to do the hard work and to take some risks. So for me, it was that connection to having an opportunity that you didn't think was on the menu for you before, having access to going back to school when you thought that was closed off, or that you didn't think you were going to be able to do that. That maybe that was a part of your life that you thought, that time has passed for me. But consistently, we hear stories from our students who say, when I realized that was not the case, that there was a door open for me, and that I could maybe go and achieve something or have something, leaving a legacy for my children, earning a better income, maybe having some opportunities to come out of some generational poverty that, I didn't think was ever going to be a reality. That may not be the language that our students are using when they're sharing their story, but that's really what's behind that message. And that's what appeals so much to me. I will confess, when I was looking at and learning more about the Excel Center and preparing to come on as the director, I relied heavily on listening and hearing those stories. When I had exhausted all of the stories that were shared on our Little Rock Excel Center website, I started trolling Indiana's websites, and I started listening to all of the videos that are shared on your school websites. And those are powerful, compelling stories. And that's really what helped me to connect. So, as we develop that culture of trust and we see that carrying through not just the high levels of leadership, but then involving all levels of our staff and our students in knowing that they have that trusting community as well. So one of the things that we did immediately after that executive leadership retreat, I wanted to come back and with our staff before we were launching into a new term, I wasn't entirely sure that all of them were that familiar with the history of Goodwill as an organization. And so we spent some time, we found some great YouTube videos about J. Edgar Helms and about the history of the organization and learning about how Goodwill as a company evolved in our country and the values there for, that are just embodied by the worth of people, service and stewardship, giving folks an opportunity to develop themselves, to find employment, and to meet their needs. So we watched some of those powerful videos, and then we kind of talked and brainstormed a list of, well, what about our specific Excel Center? Why does the model exist? And then why do we exist here in Little Rock, Arkansas? What is our Excel Center why? And so you can see these are actually real responses that some of our team brainstormed in that session together. We heard we heard offerings like giving folks another chance, building confidence and efficacy in our students, the hope and the possibility that's there because of either higher earning potential after graduation, going on to higher ed, getting a better job, just being able to celebrate and say that about yourself, that I'm a high school graduate. Those were some of our whys. The fact that we've realized that our school, for many of our students, sometimes is the safest and the most supportive community that they have in some cases. We've seen that very evidently now where our building is closed and we've had to shift our mode of learning. Our students miss being here because it has been challenging for us to replicate that same kind of community online that we have here in our building. And I'll just tell you, that's one of our mountains in the distance. That's one of those areas of opportunity and innovation that we are still trying to work through, is how do we truly be that same kind of safe and supportive community through a virtual environment that we are when we're here in person. And then we asked our people to do some brainstorming and some reflection about their personal why. Why are they individually tied to this organization and this school? And you can see some of the examples that our people shared. We hear these ideas about, well, just I love teaching, and I love teaching people who want to learn, right? And so we hear that a lot, and that's something that appeals to a lot of our instructors here. Some of them say, I know what it's like. I know what it's like to feel like I'm not going to be able to accomplish this goal in my life. But when I had somebody who communicated their belief in me and their support of me, I saw that wasn't true, that I learned something about myself that I was capable of doing. Equity, of course, was a huge piece for a lot of our staff people here about what appeals to them personally about our mission. And I will note, I think it's interesting, at least one of our faculty members was bold enough, transparent enough to actually put the question mark there. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure that I understand my personal why and my personal connection. That's a reality, and that's an issue, and it's something to pay attention to. I will note that, the individual who shared that with us is, since decided that this is not the right bus. They're not continuing on with us as we go through this journey because it is a hard place. We're helping people through transformation and life change, and that doesn't come easily. And so if that personal connection, not that it's always there for us 100%, but if we don't get to a place where we can find that personal connection and the why, then it may not be the right place for us to stay on. So I just did want to share that I felt like that was important, that some of our folks, demonstrate. I don't necessarily know why what that personal connection is for me. Another opportunity that we spent some time focusing on with our staff in really developing trust for ourselves as a staff, but then also in our classroom and community, was really focusing on our language, trying to consider the work of Carol Dweck around growth mindset, We've described that here in our language as a culture of yet. What does that look like for us at Excel? So if you're familiar at all with Carol Dweck's work or any of the growth mindset work, you've probably heard of, you know, the can-do circle, those things right now that are kind of in your wheelhouse and things that you can do. And then rather than things that you can't do, you have a circle around that or things that you just aren't doing or not capable of doing yet, right? You're not yet circle. And so the growth mindset that understands that effort, that you can actually grow that can-do circle. It's not innate ability that you're grown with and that's fixed, but rather you can grow that through effort and through attempt and through study and guidance. So one of the things that we talked a lot about as staff is, you know, changing some of our language to start talking about, you know, that we expect to see errors and mistakes from our staff, from our students, and, you know, what are we going to do when we experience those errors and mistakes? How are we going to encounter those? When we talk about success and what that means, that success looks like the fact that we take opportunities to grow our can-do circle, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that we did it right or we got it right the first time, but if we're taking those opportunities to expand what we can do and expand our knowledge, that is what success looks like. Failure is simply doing nothing to try to expand your can-do circle. So we did talk a lot about also trying to shift away from using language like can't or fail and using language like, rather than can't, I'm either unwilling or I'm unable to yet, right? Much more growth mindset focused language to realize there is still hope and there's still possibility there. Many of you in your models may also have kind of a remedial type, preparatory type course. We have those for math and reading because we have a number of students who come in and with their pre-assessments, they show us they're not yet demonstrating levels of skill ready to be ready for high school level reading or mathematics work. And so we have some courses that they spend some time in focusing on some of those necessary skills. And that's language that we have to use a lot in there is, you know, we are developing these skills, we're focusing on these skills. You don't have them yet, but you are building those to be ready for that high school level work. So we are progressing, we're working toward, but we have, even if we haven't achieved it yet, we're making progress. So let me go ahead and move us on to our next slide here. And Cindy, I'm gonna see if you want to go ahead and open us up to our first reflection point here. We're going to give us 2 minutes to kind of stop at this point. And I think you're still muted there, Cindy.
If you'll go on to the next slide, Greg, to the pause and reflect. So we've talked a little bit about what we've done as far as culture in our school, within our company, our organization. So just pause for a minute, and if you'll reflect on how would others describe the environment or culture in your school to their friends or loved ones, and how would you describe it? I would ask that you put a few comments in the chat box if you feel comfortable doing that, and would love for a couple of folks maybe to share their thoughts on that. We'll take just a 60-second reflection. If you will, make sure that you're commenting to everyone so everyone can see your feedback. So we've got Rachel, thank you. We describe it this way and hear from our students as well, a family. Yeah, we hear that a lot too. Our students really rely on each other, not just on us. Yeah. Others? If you would just type in there how you would describe the environment or culture in your school. Whatever it takes, that's good. Safe, welcoming and supportive. Supported, excellent. So I think that, lots of commonalities there. I think we probably would all describe it somewhat in a similar way. Just infusing that into how we support our staff, how we support our students. Rick, thank you. Our students are greatest recruiters. I couldn't agree with you more on that. They bring in tons of new students because of their feelings of acceptance and productivity. They sense how serious we are about helping them get ahead. They are our true marketing arm here in Arkansas. So I'm seeing that that's probably true everywhere. We have more students come to us by word of mouth than any other way. So thank you. All right, Greg, we move on.
All right, thank you. And thank you all for your participation and sharing what your thoughts at that point. So we are going to kind of speed up a little bit. As you can tell, I get excited about the topic. So I could talk about this a lot longer than 50 minutes. But so we want to talk about some practical ways, because as our students are such advocates, and our people, as when they know they have a culture where they are trusted and their voice is valued, of course, if we want their input, if we really want to nurture that innovation and their ideas, then we have to ask, right? We have to make an authentic ask and give them opportunities to share their insights and their ideas for innovation and improvement. So, Cindy, will you go back? Let me go back to our quote here. I wanted to invite Cindy to talk a little bit about our one of the ways that we did that through a couple of issues around teacher recruitment and retention, and then some strategic planning for our academy. So Cindy, I'm going to throw it back to you and let you kind of share a little bit about what some of these strategic planning sessions look like for us. And I think you're still muted again.
It keeps telling me the host is muting me. Thanks, Marcus. Can you hear me now? It keeps muting over and over. Okay, good deal. So what you see on the screen are pictures from some planning sessions that we held. We had the need to do some strategic planning with our post-secondary state licensed trade school. So we're in the midst of expanding our trade school to offer trainings in 6 different industries. And so we wanted to make sure that we included input from across our different programs from the Excel Center. So what you see here are staff from all different programs. So you've got career services, Excel staff, our life coaches for both the Excel Center as well as our life coaches we have for our employees. We have our academy, which is our trade school staff. We have our reentry staff. So we had them all in a room, and we said, here's where we want to go. We want to expand this school. What are the areas that are the most important? And so you can see here where there was a lot of sticky notes. I really am missing that in this pandemic world. I'm missing the sticky note planning. But we went around and just let everyone have their individual voice. So we made time for them to write down their own personal thoughts and then to bring those to their breakout teams and discuss those. And we use that to formulate our strategic plan for the academy. So there was input from the Excel Center, there was input from all of our other programs, and where we are headed to make sure that we are training individuals for occupations that they can earn a living wage, and to make sure that we have training programs for our Excel students that they're interested in, that there's a demand, that there are jobs. The last thing we want to do is train and pray that they get a job. So we make sure that, we made sure that we included all the voices. And it turned out really well. We started it just as a, hey, let's do this once. And we've expanded that. We've had 2 other sessions since then. This was an all-day session. And the second one was on the expansion of our Excel Center and how do we recruit the right staff for that expansion. So we had another session where we brought in different folks, but also from throughout the programs, and said, okay, this is our challenge, and give us some input on how we move forward with that.
So in kind of that same vein, there are some other opportunities that we took around different goals to try to make sure we get all of the voices heard when we're trying to make some important decisions. So some other examples of the way we've engaged teams were our instructional teams here in the building. When we looked at maybe aligning some of our curriculum, we had our math team pull together with myself, our lead teacher pulled together our English and humanities teachers, and we looked at just some revision to our curriculum. I thought it was interesting that one of our seasoned math teachers who taught in public school for 34 years mentioned at that experience that that was the first time in her teaching career that someone had asked her to give input on curriculum alignment. I thought that was phenomenal, you know, that and kind of sad actually, that was the first time an educator's voice was asked to contribute to, you know, how does our curriculum align with our standards? Are we meeting our goals? So just by being asked, and that teacher, you know, thanking us for having that kind of opportunity for them to weigh in. You've got an example there of one of our student advisory groups that pulled together. We wanted to hear their voices on what was working, what could be improved in our school. We prepared lunch for them. We had them meet and come together and just share some of their input about, you know, how they really see the culture being lived out here. In fact, you know, our having the students be able to make those nominations for our character and value awards that Cindy described earlier, that was one of the things that was born out of that student advisory council. It was one of their ideas. So that's something we really want to continue to revisit, even in this online land. Is we may not be able to serve lunch to them all together, but you know, we can bring our lunch together and have those same kinds of conversations. And then I already kind of talked a little bit about the social media presence and how powerful that is as we share stories, but responding to questions and concerns that are raised. We have a marketing department here who really does kind of help us keep an eye on the feedback and the comments that we get through our social media platforms and how we respond to concerns and ideas that are expressed through our social media in our schools. This is a tool we're not going to take a lot of time because of the sake of time. But I did want to share that with you as we think about the people that we serve. One of the things that I ran across here that I thought was really cool from IBM is this idea of an empathy map. And so we did this with our staff earlier this week as we were thinking about how we engage students who aren't really jumping on to this idea of interacting through a Zoom classroom. They'll do their work outside of class, but they aren't necessarily coming to the Zoom classrooms every day and benefiting from that helpful part of our instruction. So we tried to put ourselves in the place of our student. So just by drawing that map and putting that student in the center and thinking about what we know of, what are we hearing our students say? What are they doing? And then what are we thinking? What do they think or what do they feel? What do we know about that? As much as possible, bringing actual notes and observations that we've made about the things that they say and do and think and feel, ideally involving the student themselves in this conversation is certainly you know, going to help us better identify with their needs and where they're coming from as we are trying to make decisions that impact the programs that they are experiencing. So this was an interesting opportunity for us as a staff. You know, it uncovered some of the things that we think students may be thinking or feeling about participating in an online Zoom. And some of those things were not real positive in terms of why is this important? I could do this on my own, or I don't have time for that. Those are some things we want to investigate. Is that true? We want to talk to some students and say, this is what we perceive is your reality. Is that the case? We want to check that out. And then how can we address that if that is true? For the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and move us through this next pause and reflect. But in your own notes, I'd like for you to maybe thinking about how could others know that their voice counts at your school? What are some things that you're already doing that you could share with the group as we go out of here in about the next 5 minutes? What are some things that you could do to or continue to do to help others know that their voice counts where you're at? So the last thing we want to touch on here briefly in our short time that we have remaining are some of those half-baked ideas that Cindy mentioned earlier. How do we develop resiliency and grit in the individuals or the teams that we're working with? So just our point of humor here, if any of you are familiar with the Nailed It images, I love these. You have that image in your mind of what you think this great idea is going to look like. You know, who wouldn't love a Kit Kat hot tub, right? And then the reality of how that turns out. So you've got the nice shark there eating the surfer, kind of a terrifying cupcake, if you ask me. And then the reality of what that looks like. Or, you know, the sweet emoji, kissy face emoji. Your idea and the reality of how it turns out could be entirely different. So what do you do when your attempts do not quite match up to the picture that you had in mind? So we talk a lot about, when it comes to innovation and improvement, we talk about resiliency and grit. And that's so important to our staff and our students, the ability to come back after a defeat or an unsuccessful attempt. One of the things, of course, that we have as part of our culture, 100% of the students that we serve, you know, were not successful in completing their high school diploma at some point in their past for a myriad of reasons. So how do we, from the very beginning, start having those conversations about, this is where we're taking back another opportunity? So one of the things that we did with our team this year, after this initial attempt at online instruction, was just simply asking our staff, let's talk about what worked well. Let's keep doing this. Let's maybe hit the pause button or caution and improve some of this, and then let's stop doing this altogether. It's a simple Google form that we invited staff to fill out for us and reflect on, and that's guiding a lot of our conversation as we go forward. And then as we're launching into our next term online, some of the things that we are looking at doing a little differently at some of that, after some of that feedback, is looking for more opportunities for that social emotional interaction for our students, where some of the things that they're doing via Zoom is not all academic focused or classroom focused, but it is having just some of that hangout time that they've kind of missed when they were here in the building. So I am looking at the clock, and I will apologize right now for not really truly giving you all the reflection time that I promised. This will be my growth opportunity for the next time we present, right? But when you are thinking about how can we continue to, if we've spent the time developing that culture of trust, we've let others know that their voices count, and then we can empower them to know that they can come back after an initial attempt that maybe did not turn out the way we had hoped or planned. I do want to recommend a read for you if you have not picked up this book yet, The Innovator's Mindset by George Couros. It was an excellent read in preparation for this session, and a quick read. So I will say that I want to encourage you to maybe take that up as part of your ongoing professional learning. And as promised, before we leave.
Hey, Greg,
Yeah.
let's go back just a second. I know we only have a couple of minutes, but I want to read just a blurb off the back of that book, just to, for folks to understand the role it plays. So the Innovator's Mindset is for you if you're a superintendent, district administrator, or principal who wants to empower your staff to create a culture of innovation. You're a school leader at any level and want to help students and educators become their personal best, or you are a teacher who wants to create relevant learning experiences and help students develop the skills they need to be successful. So that's just a quick blurb off the back of the book. This was, Greg turned me on to this book, excellent read, and highly recommend it.
So as promised, again, the time, man, goes so fast here. And I do hope that you guys will take the time to complete our follow-up survey there, that Google form. You've got the URL there. Share your contact information with one another around some of those ideas for improvement or innovation that you'd like to do some follow-up collaboration around, to kind of share with one another how things are going in your location and what we can do to help and support one another. And with that, I'm just going to say thank you so much for your attendance today. And Marcus, are we in under the time limit?
You guys nailed it. Perfect timing. Thank you guys. Great presentation. Thanks to all the attendees for the participation as well. I know Cindy and Greg they will respond to any outreach if you want to follow up with them. They love that kind of dialogue and collaboration. So again, thank you all. I'm going to close this down. You guys take care of yourself in the next 10 minutes before session number 2 kicks off. So thank you guys. And again, thanks Greg and thanks Cindy.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Y'all have a great conference.